Hey, Funky Town Baseball. I'm going to do some winter meetings updates and do some trade grades now that we've had transactions get unlocked and we've seen a few moves come through. I think it'd be fun this year if I do some trade grade material. Hopefully, I won't offend anybody too badly. I'm just going to say it like I see it. But yeah, first we're going to go through the updates, what things have changed, what we decided at the meetings today. So I'm going to start going through those one at a time right now. Okay, well, first side note here is that we do enjoy the league. It seems 7.7 out of 9. We are very confident that we're going to continue playing in this league for the next 3 years at least. That's 8.3 out of 9. I asked how important is success? How important is the money? How important is league parity when you're considering whether you want to continue? Money was not important. Success and parity even were less than neutral. So like we don't really care. We're here for fun and we're having fun, and that's good. Seemed like a good result for those first few questions. Before we get into the next part, I need to explain myself a little bit about why are these things even top of mind. So I think we've had a really big paradigm shift in how trading in the off season is going to work. We used to have draft slots be occupied by our keepers. We all know how that system works. So if you had a first round pick and you kept them, you do not get a first round pick in that year's draft. So you're directly sacrificing your free draft pick in order to keep this guy. Well, that means, of course, that those guys are less desirable, right? So if I'm a really, really good team and I buy a ton of talent at the deadline, I go through the postseason, whatever happens, happens. Now I'm in the off season. I approach a really bad team who has no talent. And I say, hey, I have 2 first round picks. I'll sell them both to you. Sorry, I meant to say players. I have 2 first round players, Tatis and Acuna. Do you want them? I'll sell them to you. Just give me some picks. And the bad team is going to say, well, no, I don't want them. I don't want to clog up my first and second round picks. That's just not good business. I can get people in that round for free. I don't need Tatis and Acuna. I can just draft whoever's available for free, right? And so the person who had Tatis and Acuna is going to have a hard time selling them in that environment. We're not in that environment anymore. Now, having Tatis and Acuna is a blessing. There's no draft pick penalty to keeping them. It's just, do you have that in your $100 keeper budget? And it makes no sense to just give those guys away for free. You should probably just keep them if you have them, right? So the buying team that just went in and got, let's say, $200 worth of really good talent, they're going to keep 100, the best 100, but they're going to have 100 left to sell. And all the teams at the bottom, they're going to be very receptive to it now. Used to be they didn't want your first and second round guys because it was going to occupy their draft slot. Now it doesn't matter to the draft slot. They're just looking for talent, and they don't have any because they sold it, because they thought that's what the meta was. They thought that that was the best way to recoup, become good again, get draft picks, right? But now we're seeing that teams on the bottom just don't have elite talent, and the teams that were at the top last year, they still have all the talent, and now they pretty much have all the leverage over the bad teams. And my fear is that they're going to be able to recoup a lot of draft capital, and it's going to be very easy. You buy in, you think of that as a sacrifice last year. Oh, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to spend all my picks. If you can just get all those picks again in the offseason because you have all the leverage, that isn't quite what the dynamic was designed to be. There should be buyers and sellers that are constantly cycling. I'm afraid that the buyers may be able to stay at the top for a long time. And if you were a buyer at the time of this rule change, you may be set. And if you were a seller at the time of the rule change, you may be screwed. That's my fear. And so that's why I'm thinking of these things. How can we mitigate this? How can we maybe take buyers down a peg? How can we level the playing field a little bit? And so things like a cap, things like a keeper cut down at the end of the season where you got to trim your roster to $150. That means you have to cut $200 of people. So be it. Maybe that's the penalty for buying. Not a penalty, but anyways, these are the thoughts on my mind. This is why those kinds of things are being proposed in a document like this. With that said, we really didn't do anything with it. We talked about some scenarios, but really what we're going to do is more keep an eye on it this year, and we're going to see how things shake out. We'll maybe make more aggressive moves next season, like implementing a cap or something like that. That's probably an item for next winter meetings, and we'll just see how things are going as we go through this season. That's probably where we're going to settle. So I'm going to talk through some of the actual line items here. Are super teams an issue? We think yes, but not overwhelmingly yes. Our current surplus pick swaps okay? So I'm talking about in the off season, how easy is it for previous buyers to offload all their picks and just all their players and get all their picks back. Didn't seem like anyone thought it was a big issue. Really, no one thought really any of these were a big issue. We're going to keep the 3-pick max and the 5-player max. There's not going to be any restrictions for how many trades you can make between like a certain pairing of people. One thing that we did change, we are not going to allow any trades before May 18 of this year. We want to do this so that no team gives up on themselves really, really early in the season and then leads to a massive sell-off, which would then kill the buzz pretty much right away. I know, Frank, this is something that you really wanted to discuss, and you weren't there tonight, but it seems like a good idea to me. Let's just all see how our teams fare. Let's not make any quick, rash decisions. Not a lot of teams make trades before May 18th anyways, and May 18th is a Sunday, I guess. That's what I was told. So that's the day we're going to do the end of that week. So the 18th just kind of was the random day. Mid-May was really the target. So we're going to play out all of April and then half of May. 6-7 weeks of our schedule will be completed. We'll be about a third of the way through the season. If you want to trade everyone that you have at that point, fine, more power to you. But we're going to see what your numbers look like essentially for the first third of the season, those T1 numbers on the spreadsheet that I always post. Let's see what that looks like. Then we will enable trades. Frankly, I don't think it'll hurt anybody. You'll still have plenty of time to make decisions for whether you are a buyer or a seller. There really won't be a big ramification from this, I don't think. But we will save ourselves from the potential of someone giving up after 2 weeks and really caving and killing some of the mood for the rest of the league. It's a subtle thing, but I think it's worth doing. So we're going to try that. Next thing we changed was the draft pick order. So we've always rewarded the worst team, the 12th team or the 11th team, with the number 1 pick in the following year's draft. And we use a linear draft, and so having the first pick means you have the first pick for every single round. It's a pretty big deal. And so teams tank, and that's fine. Tanking is a part of sports. You have a right to tank if you pay your $100 and that's what you want to do with your team. I get it. I tanked. I get it. However, it does create a little bit of a problem because we are really competitive. Last year was our most competitive season by a lot. We had a lot of people pushing for the playoffs, like 8 or 9 of us, even in July. We were like really competitive going for that final couple spots. It sucks when someone's just throwing you a softball on purpose, trying to lose 0-16 so that they can streak to the bottom. And those were the rules, and so I totally get everyone who did it. Again, I did it too. Though I've only missed the playoffs once, so this was my first time. So I'm just throwing that out there. Now we're going to reward 7th place with the first pick. So we're going to do inverse, and that means if you finish last, you will have the 6th pick. This should mean, hopefully, every team is pushing as hard as they can to win every game that they can the entire season, because the better you finish, the better your draft pick. It's different from what we've done in the past, but we've had a tanking issue in the past, and I think this is a good way to address it. It wasn't my idea. I forget who suggested it, but I think it's a great idea. I wish I had thought of it. We're going to try it. We're going to see how it goes, but that is official. So 7th place is now the first pick in the draft, and then goes down from there for the non-playoff teams. Playoffs, you settle it just like we always have. So no change to playoff teams and how their draft order is set. So in terms of categories, we did make some changes. We are not switching from just number of walks to walk rate on offense. However, in pitching, no more walks, no more home runs allowed. Those are switching to rate stats. So instead of how many times did you walk someone, what is the walks per 9 your pitching staff allowed? What is the home runs per 9 that your pitching staff allowed? So no longer will you be paralyzed by fear of starting someone if you are kicking your opponent's ass in ratios. If your quality of pitching has been way better than your opponent's and you're trying to get that last quality appearance, that last save, that last hold, you no longer need to be afraid to throw that person into your lineup. Just throw them. If you're ahead in the ratios, you should be covered, right? There's still obviously going to be risk throwing anyone if you're winning your ratios. They could tank your ratios if they suck, right? Of course. But for the longest time, walks and home runs has kind of made people not throw guys when they would like to chase down, maybe see if they can get that quality appearance. I think this really balances pitching and makes it more of a viable strategy to be, I am a pitching first team, because if your ratios are just better than everyone, you're going to have success, right? Whereas anyone can get stuck with a week where the other team has a 6 ERA, but they've only happened to walk 11 people, and you're kicking their ass in everything, but you've walked 13 people, or even if you've walked 10, right? You don't want to throw anyone else. Anyways, you guys all know what I'm talking about. There's that dilemma we've all faced. Do I throw this guy or not? Because I know he's going to give up a walk, so I'll probably lose that, but maybe I could get this. I think that's crap. If you have a good pitching staff, they have good ratios, throw them. You shouldn't be as scared of that. We're going to make both of those changes. Effective immediately as well, I should say. Another thing we did for 2026, I'm interested to see how everyone that wasn't at the winter meetings feels about this. One of them is not controversial at all to me. We are going to change saves to net saves. If you are a closer and you are blowing saves left and right, you suck as a closer. You shouldn't be an elite closer in our league. That's my feeling. Just like we have stolen bases net, if you suck at stealing bases, you aren't as good as someone who's really good at stealing bases, no matter what your raw total says. If you save 50 games, that's too high of a number. That's exceptional. So let's say you save 25 games, but you blow 10 saves. Like, you're not a good closer. That you shouldn't be in the top 10% of our closer rankings just because you racked up 25 saves. Now that person will have 15 saves because they blew 10. I think that's much more accurate, and I think it's a better way to gauge how good are you as a closer. And so that will happen in 26 because we don't want to really change. People didn't strategize for net saves, right? Volume is king right now, and that's how we've always game planned. That's how we've made our transactions work. So we're going to leave it at net for 26 when we have a little more time to think strategically about what that's going to mean and who should we target for those things. We're also going to add a new stat. It's not replacing anything. It's going to be our 17th stat, and that is fielding percentage. And that's going to be really, really interesting. So certainly we cannot do this right now either. We have all chosen teams based on nothing to do with fielding. Fielding is a huge part of baseball. There are plenty of players who have everyday jobs and a whole career that are just killer at defense, suck at the plate, but they're still really useful to their teams. Fielding percentage is a measure of how good you are in the field. It doesn't capture everything. Depending on what kind of lineup you run, you may have more reps, like more potential for errors. And so if your middle infield spot is a second baseman, you probably get a little fewer balls than the shortstop. If your corner is a first baseman, you're probably getting a few fewer balls than the third baseman. Actually, that might not be accurate now that I think about it. Anyways, fielding is going to matter. It's a part of baseball. We have measured almost every other valuable part of baseball, but not fielding. So hopefully this means no more ties in the playoffs. It's going to add a new element to it. It'll add value to a few people in our league that makes it even more unique, which I think is awesome. I love having our unique scoring system that you can't just go look up on any rating system online. So I'm really excited about that. Again, that's 2026 saves to net saves and the addition of fielding percentage. Effective immediately, we're changing walks and home runs allowed to walks per 9 and home runs per 9. You'll see them on Fantrax already updated. So yeah, a couple category changes to note. I think that's going to be really interesting, and we'll bring those two new ones in with the expansion. Regarding expansion, verdict was on the survey that the expansion process was pretty good for the 2022 expansion teams, Jeremy and Brad. So we're going to do the same thing. They will have access after we all select our keepers to all of the other players that were not selected. They will have the ability to take on the exact terms of their deals however they were left. So if you have 1 year left on your deal and you cost a lot of money because you've been kept 4 times, the expansion teams will have the option to select that last year of that deal at that high price, right? Or if you've got just 1 year down and you have 4 years left, they can select it and get all 4 of those years at whatever the price was that you did not keep, right? They're going to fill up $100 worth of those kinds of contracts, and then they will be added to the regular draft where we will all select all of our picks just like normal. And we decided, the survey said 2 divisions would sound really fun, right? But we couldn't settle on anything in the winter meeting. So right now it looks like we're probably going to stick with just the one division. A lot of that was like, well, do we lock in with the other 6 people? But then someone might be pissed if they're with Nate and some other really good team like Nate and Frank in the same side, and then you're down in the bottom of that half, and then you're kind of mad because, well, how do I ever beat these 2 really good teams? And I don't know. We just couldn't get to a point where we were comfortable with that. So, and we also didn't really like the idea of just shuffling every single year new divisions. So we're probably going to stick to just the one. We confirmed we're going to keep 6 playoff teams. We're not going to expand that to 7. Most likely, I guess. That's not technically final, but that's my thought anyways. And then a few other random miscellaneous ideas. Alex wanted to propose we do a destination draft for year 10 or something like that, right? I think that sounds fun. We certainly didn't really get too far into it. The idea of potentially an eventual reset year where we just swipe it all away and start from scratch. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it was an idea. And certainly it would be fun, like part of it. We decided we are keeping the farm. Matthew proposed maybe we expand the farm. We all kind of shot that down collectively at the meetings. We talked about whether pick swaps should be required, and we said no. 25 game requirement to have positional eligibility at a place, we're going to keep that. I think that was really it. Yeah, so that's pretty much most of the changes we talked about. We had a slew of trades come through the second that we finished up talking of all of these things. So I'm going to do some trade grades next. So first trade to discuss, we've got Nate trading Bo. A lot of his surplus for a pretty good haul of picks from Bo. So he trades Max Fried, Joe Ryan, Brian Reynolds, and Ryan Helsley, the Ryan trade, for a 3-11, 5-8, and 6-12 from Bo. Gotta say, my opinion is this probably helps Bo a little more than it helps Nate. I mean, it helps Nate because Nate was going to get nothing from these guys, presumably, if he didn't sell them. I think Bo did well. I think this is a pretty good price. Pretty much a 4th when you're talking 3-11, a 5th, and then like almost a 7th with the 6-12. If you say 4, 5, and 7 for Fried, Ryan, Reynolds, and Helsley, I think that's a really good bargain. Now he's acquiring $41, so I mean that's almost half his keeper budget, but he didn't pay too much, I think, based on kind of what we've seen in some recent years. So I'd probably give the edge to Bo, but obviously Nate has to do what he has to do to get picks back. And there's another move featuring Nate here in just a moment that we're going to talk about. Nate's got a lot of pick capital all of a sudden. Next deal is Nate trading Jeremiah, Paul Skeens, Bryce Harper, and Jurickson Profar. So $37 of cap moving. In return, Nate gets Shane Boz, who was pretty good last year. Pick 2-4, 3-10, and 4-10. So, of course, you know, Bo and Jeremiah don't know what the other person's getting. Skeens is a generational talent, it looks like. Harper is really, really good. Probably better than anyone that Bo got in his package. So I understand why Jeremiah paid a little more. To give up Boz and those 3 picks, it's no small price. But getting Skeens, like for Nate not to get a first for Skeens, is borderline shocking, as good as Skeens was last year. So it's hard to say that this was an overpay for Jeremiah. Considering Nate didn't get a first, I feel like I still have to probably lean Jeremiah's way on this one. But again, Nate is in a hard position. When you have that much talent, you've got to get rid of it for something. Everybody knows it. I'd say, considering the cumulative net of these 2 moves, getting a 2nd, 2/3, a 4th, a 5th, and a 6th, certainly you're back in business when you can acquire that much draft capital that quick, and you still have Shohei Ohtani and Bobby Witt. God knows who else from that championship team. So Nate's going to be just fine. But I still give the edge a little bit to Bo and to Jeremiah with these 2 trades specifically, probably if I had to pick a side. Next move is Jeremiah purchasing Corbin Carroll from Alex for pick 3, 4, and Ceddanne Rafaela. I don't think Rafaela will probably be kept, but doesn't hurt to have an extra dude thrown your way. Pick 3, 4 for Corbin Carroll at $17.50 seems like a lot. And yet, Corbin Carroll pretty much universally a first-round ADP kind of guy. He sucked in the first half last year, but he found his groove and was amazing in the second. So if Jeremiah can get that Corbin Carroll to pair with this big package of players he got and the next player we're about to discuss, Jeremiah's looking like a team to really turn things around quick. And for Alex to get a third-round pick out of that when you knew damn well you were going to have to drop him, probably, I think that's good work. I think Jeremiah may have paid a little more than I would have expected for Carroll. I was in the running for Carroll, frankly. Jeremiah beat me out. A little too rich for my blood, but I certainly understand wanting to go after that massive upside. So probably lean Alex on this one, nonetheless. And another move from Jeremiah, pick 210 and Jonathan India for Freddie Freeman at $16. So interesting that Freeman was able to get a higher price than Corbin Carroll, who universally is a higher ADP, just $1.50 difference. So Jeremiah must have really wanted a first baseman. Jonathan India was really good last year. Pretty good, I guess I should say. Probably is more accurate. $394 though, that's a nice keeper for JW, and a good pick for a first baseman that I think is starting to enter into the old man territory, injury risk more prevalent than ever. I think I'm pretty firmly on JW's side of this one, but again, can't really fault Jeremiah for going and chasing after great hitters. He's going to have a pretty formidable lineup when you look at the additions that he's just made in these three moves back to back to back. Adding Freddie Freeman, Corbin Carroll, Paul Skeens, Bryce Harper, and Jurickson Profar, that's a pretty good remedy for being bad. I think Jeremiah's going to have a pretty quick turnaround on his window for contention. That said, a lot of premium draft capital given up, so we will see how this all kind of plays out in the end. Alex gets Carlos Rodon for pick 9-9. Frank has a lot of extra talent. He posted a list of guys that were available. Rodon was on the list. It's a pretty shrewd pickup, I would say, for Alex. It's a good price for someone that has been amazing in the past, really had a nice year in the second half. Last year, figured a couple of things out, changed his pitch mix a little bit. $840 is a good price. He's 2024, so, I mean, he's old, but if Rodon's really good this year, that's someone that Alex could maybe keep or trade next year. So, seems like really good value to me. Can't fault Frank for getting rid of excess that he wasn't going to keep. So, it's pretty close to neutral, I suppose, but I think it's a good move for Alex. It's interesting because Alex already has a lot of money, and he's going to have to clearly push someone else out and probably try to trade them. So not what I would have thought was like an ideal fit, but the value I think is pretty good for Alex here. French and Frank make a whopper deal that I knew nothing about, and that's pretty cool. Juan Soto on the move. Some people's #1 player in our league, I believe. And Devin Williams and pick 7-7. Now the pick is more of like just offsetting pick. So Frank is sending pick 211. And then French is sending pick 7-7, so a 5-round change. And with the 5-round change comes Juan Soto and Devin Williams for Blake Snell, Seiya Suzuki, and Jared Jones. I mean, Jared Jones is kind of the prize of the thing contractually, but Blake Snell coming off a Cy Young. Seiya Suzuki had a really nice year, although a little bit quiet, not necessarily gaudy, but like good numbers across the board. And French goes up 5 rounds in the draft. Juan Soto is amazing, and yet kind of feels like a win for French to me to get 5 picks up in this critical part of the draft. Jared Jones' contract is so good. Then again, Devin Williams is really good too. I don't know. That's a really tough one. I love this move. It's fun to see something so huge like this. I think French has... I think I like it more for French if I had to pick, but obviously it's tough to pick against Juan Soto. Maybe that's just because I like Jared Jones. I don't know. That's a good one. I really like that one. Another big one is French sending Gunnar Henderson and Nick Castellanos to KC for a second. 2-6, Justin Steele and Luis Angel Acuna. Acuna's a farm guy who has still a 0 cost. Steele, one of the weird pitchers that doesn't look like he's doing anything crazy well, but always has a really low ERA. Gunnar is such a stud. Castellanos is getting a little bit old. That 1065 price tag starting to feel a little bit much. But Gunnar, even at 1750, I think many teams would have kept him at that price. Second's a little expensive considering the price. So I think French did pretty well here, but I also see why Casey wants to add a massive talent like Gunnar to his infield. So I kind of see this as a mutually beneficial deal. Though if I were Casey, I would have probably tried to steer a little lower than that because of the inherent pressure French was going to face about having to get rid of that much salary. But not bad. First deal from me and Frank. So I acquired Rafael Devers and Vinny Pasquantino for Yandy Diaz, pick 4-1 and pick 4-10. I mean, I'm biased, but I think this holds up as one of the probably better value moves if you think Devers is an elite bat, which I think almost all of us probably do. He's also $12 and not 16. He was just one of those guys that didn't get on the same track as a lot of the original group because he hadn't quite popped at that time to be elite when we were first starting the league, so he wasn't on that same track as most of those guys. So anyway, 4th round pick, 10th round pick, palatable, I believe, and I needed lots of talent, so this was a good move, I think, for me and for Frank. A 4th round pick is no joke. Getting Yandy Diaz is actually kind of nice, especially they're going to be playing in Steinbrenner Field now in Tampa, outside with the humidity, same dimensions as Yankee Stadium. It's an appealing place to hit. I think Pasquantino has probably a lot more upside than Yandy Diaz, but Yandy Diaz has an incredible floor and he's really good at what he's good at. So I think shrewd move to ask for Yandy back in that deal, but I think I will probably be keeping Devers and Pasquantino. So I think it was a win-win. If you want to say those specifically, I mean, for me, the 4th round pick for Devers seems like pretty good value when you're comparing it to some of the other deals. So is it okay for me to give a win to myself? I don't know. I mean, it's a mild win to myself. That's probably what I would say. And then we have Alex Bregman for a 7th. I put this incorrectly on the screen. So French is sending me Alex Bregman, and I am sending him pick 7-1. Alex Bregman's certainly not the bat he used to be, but he is fresh off the news of getting traded to Boston. I guess I thought that the home run totals would be really high in Boston. Looking at the expected home run outcomes, it isn't quite as good as you would think, but he's probably going to hit a lot of doubles off that thing. He's a pull specialist. Doesn't have a lot of pop, but he knows exactly how to maximize his fly balls to left. Average will probably be really good, and he should get second base eligibility a month plus into the season, but that's where he's figured to play. That was a pretty big part of it for me. It's what made the 7th feel palatable. And French jumped on it when I sent him the offer. So I think it's a win-win for both of us because he would have clearly had to drop Bregman for nothing, and I doubt his market was really that big at $11.10. Can't quit Alex Bregman even though he's an asshole. Just fits my profile that I really like. So this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've had Alex Bregman on my team, and yeah, I think it's probably good value for French, honestly. But if Alex Bregman plays second and gets friendly with the wall out in Fenway, I'll live with it. So I have yet to put any of this into the league document, but I plan to do that pretty soon. I'm hoping to do a few more of these videos this year. Trade grades I think are always kind of fun. They're at least provocative. So if you have any questions over the winter meetings updates and how that's going to look, just let me know. Put it in the group chat or text me, whatever. But yeah, I'm going to try to do these as I can. I'm looking forward to a good season, and I'm sure there's a lot of trades coming up, so I'm sure I'll have another trade grades thing before we get into draft time. Draft date kind of TBD right now too, so yeah, I'll post more updates soon.